What's up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Diana, creator of Money Boss Mama, and in this video I am going to be breaking down how to save money and pay off debt at the same time. A couple of you have requested this, and when I was preparing for this video I realized that throughout my entire debt-free journey I had always saved and paid off debt at the same time. So be sure to grab your pencil, grab some paper, because we are going to be going through the steps and I don't want you guys to miss out on anything. Let's get started. All right, the first thing that you guys are going to need to do is to get organized. Organization is key to everything, I feel like. And when I say get organized, I mean you're gonna need to know what's coming in and what is going out, aka create the dang budget. There's really no way around it. You're not going to know how much you have to work with, which is your glorious gap, until you know what's coming in and what is going out. So list all of your expenses and list how much income that you have coming in for a specific time period, which is normally a month. And whatever it is that you have left over after all of your expenses have been taken out from your income, that is going to be your glorious gap or your golden gap. And that is going to tell you how much you have to apply to debt and to savings. So as you're going through and creating your budget, you want to make sure to keep an eye on that, because obviously if it's like $5, that's going to be why you feel like it's super hard to progress, because you only had $5 to work with, and certain things may have to be cut and reduced temporarily to make more room in your glorious gap. But you guys really aren't going to know how much you have to actually work with until you sit down and create the budget. Next thing is list out all of your debt. So grab a piece of paper, you can use Microsoft Word, whatever it is that you prefer, and list out every individual debt. Do not group them together like you do with maybe credit cards or student loans. List out every individual student loan and every individual credit card. And when you're doing this, make sure to write down the interest rate or the APR, as well as how much your monthly payment is. Your monthly payment and or minimum payment. This is super important, because if you are not organized and you don't really know what you're focusing on, it's going to be very easy to get overwhelmed. And when we get overwhelmed, we tend to want to quit. And some people watching this may be like, yeah, I quit because it was just too much. There was probably a lack of organization there. Now, there are different methods that you guys can follow to help you determine which debt balance you want to focus on first. The first one being the most popular one, that is the debt snowball. So from your list, whichever debt has the smallest balance, that's going to be the one that you focus on first. And the debt avalanche is when you select the debt with the highest interest rate. I'm not quite sure what this next method is called, or even if it has a name, but it's one that I used in the beginning, and that is whenever you select the debt with the highest payment. So whichever one is taking up the most room in your budget. I started with this one first because I was low income and my auto loan was taking up one paycheck per month. And you can also choose to start with the debt balance that you have that's the most current. So the most current debt, you can start there. It really does not matter. It's just going to depend on your preference as well as your behavior. Do not take your behavior out of this. So if you are someone, or if you are working towards something and you don't see any progress, then I suggest going with the debt snowball. Debt snowball, and this allows you to get those little hits. So you get those quicker wins because you're starting with the smallest debt balance. So you're actually proving to yourself that you are making progress. So I actually used pretty much every debt strategy there was, depending on where I was mentally at that time. So don't think that you have to be married to one. But if you are a numbers person, consider the avalanche, because essentially you're going to be saving the most money since you're getting rid of the higher interest debt first, and it helps you to save on time. And if you are someone where you don't really have a lot of money to work with, you can consider starting with the debt that has the highest payment, because once you get that knocked down, especially with credit cards, you know, as you knock down the balance, that minimum payment is going to go down. So it's not going to require so much money. So it's going to help your golden gap to expand, and then you have more money to work with. The next thing that you need to do whenever you are saving money and paying off debt is to set up an automatic contribution. It is the year 2021, so hopefully your employer allows direct deposit. And so what you'll do is go in, and depending on how much you actually want to save, you'll add your savings account and the amount that needs to be pulled every payday. And when it comes to the amount, you're going to need to decide which one is going to be more important, saving money or paying off debt. Even though you are doing both, one needs to take the lead. And so if it is paying off debt, then obviously you're going to put a little bit more to debt, and then you are going to have a smaller contribution when it comes to savings, or you're actually going to save more than what you are paying out in debt. And with me, I'll just use me for an example throughout the entire video. Debt was more important because the minimum payments were eating me alive, and sis needed her golden gap to grow. So I set up an automatic contribution of like $15 in the beginning. That's all I was saving, but it's still saving. So even though your contribution may not be where you want it to be, you're still saving money, and your savings account is still growing as you are continuing to chip away at your debt. And I always recommend automatic contributions because, number one, if you are a beginner, it's going to help you build up that consistency of setting that money aside. I call it saving money the lazy way, because you're not manually having to put the money in the account, so you're not going to forget to set aside the money. It's just the system's going to do it for you. And if you are someone who tends to convince yourself why you should not set that money aside and why you should be able to spend it on something else, then this is something that I recommend, because that contribution is going to happen no matter how you're feeling, no matter how many times you try to tell yourself you deserve something else. It's going into your savings account, and it's like out of sight, out of mind. So it just makes it a lot easier to not see that money and then want to use it towards something else. And a quick tip for saving beginners: start small and then gradually increase your contributions. And I say this because if you've never really saved before, you're going to kind of go into shock, because that money is gone. Like, it's not in your bank account anymore, and you know you can't touch it. So it's just something about that money being gone and you not being able to really access it that kind of makes you freak out a little bit, because your spending habits and your behavior have to adjust, and you have to allow time for that, because you've gone however many years, your entire life, not really saving, and now all of a sudden you're saving, and you're having to adjust really fast. And so I recommend whatever amount that you want to save, kind of go a little bit under that. So if you want to save 40 per paycheck, maybe drop it to 30, and then give yourself time to get used to being without that $30. And some of you may say, well, it's just $30. Well, it's a different ball game when you're actually without that $30, but you have the same spending habits. So give yourself time to learn how to adjust without being with that money, and then gradually start increasing it until you get to $40, the original 40 that you wanted to save. Next is using the 70-20-10 allocation method for extra money or windfalls. And if you are not new here, you guys know that windfalls were a huge part of my debt payoff strategy, especially because I did not have a lot of money to work with as far as income wise. And I know that when we get these windfalls, and I'm talking about tax refunds, settlement checks, you know, the stimulus, bonuses, pretty much anything that we did not necessarily work for or we don't get consistently, whenever we get this money, we're just like, what the heck do I do with this money? And this is why it's so important to be organized. So going back to the beginning, you know what you are wanting to work on and what kind of comes second, and you know what expenses you have to pay for and what your gap is. But I came up with a 70-20-10 allocation method to just kind of make it easier. So depending on which one comes first, debt or savings, let's say debt, 70% will go to debt, 20% will go to savings, and then 10% will go to personal use, because you still deserve to have experiences and to enjoy yourself. And this way you can feel proud whenever you get those extra sources of income, because you use the majority of it in a responsible way to help you really accelerate on your financial journey, and you got to enjoy it as well. So when you're going out and you're spending this 10%, you don't have to feel guilty because you've already handled your other responsibilities. Next tip to help you save money and pay off debt is whenever your debt balances start decreasing, use that extra money to help increase your debt payments and your savings contributions. And I know that from a discipline standpoint, this is going to be very challenging. You're really going to have to challenge yourself to use that money that you just freed up to go right back to your financial goals, instead of putting it somewhere in your budget that is towards a non-essential, like beauty or food or whatever. But you have to think greater than how you feel. If you play your cards right with this tip, this can really help fuel your financial journey, and it is a game changer. So just think about it. Whenever your credit cards start decreasing and your minimum payment starts decreasing, if you use that money to help you pay off another debt and to help increase your savings, you're really putting yourself in a winning position. You have to think greater than how you feel, so that your feelings are not how you think, because our feelings, they are not reliable. They change a lot, and they're going to cause us to spend money in a way that doesn't really align with our values. And this way, like, this really helped me to make up for lost time, because I was intentional about using this extra money to help me pay off debt and save money at the same time. Because as my glorious gap is increasing, I'm using it in ways that's really helping my financial journey, and it's really helping my future self. So you always have to go through thinking about your future self and just using your opportunities and what you have to help you get to your financial goals. But I really hope that this video was helpful to you all. Be sure to leave your recommendations down below, and I will catch you in the next one.